So, very warm welcome to our presentation. And I'm just the opening act. The more interesting things will come from James Hennelly. But I would like to take you a step back and think about what the RSC did and what we achieved in the last years. You know, RDA as a standard, the RDA toolkit has a long history, and it was based on, we can say it as on an Anglo-American standard, was the predecessor, the AACR2. And the first issue of the toolkit wasn't as international as it would have been, as we would like it to be. And the more and more user communities and regions took part in this process, it became so obviously that something has to happen, and that this standard, as it was at its first version, wasn't international at all. And the RDA communities, which are the RDA board and the RSC, took account of these requirements and started several projects. One, the biggest one, was the well-known 3R project to avoid all these Anglo-American focus, the Western biases and all these things. This is a long and ongoing process, as you can imagine. We talked about several issues today which has to be changed or adapted. And a very much important role in this game plays the regions. And EURIG, as one of the first region with a stable organization, we got a lot of proposals, discussion papers, and general input from EURIG. And so I hope this will continue, and I would like to motivate you to do so. So today we will look some steps back to see what we achieved so far, and then James Hennelly will tell you what we decided in the last months, what the board decided, and the RSC, and what we would like to do and what's new in this context. So RDA was always intended as a pure cataloging standard, and first of all for libraries. Even in the original toolkit, it was mentioned for all resources and all institutions, but this was a big word to say this. So we are underway with this. It came from an definitely Anglo-American tradition, and the original toolkit has largely continued this tradition. Beside this, cataloging was already in a phase of upheaval at this time, or we can say even nowadays, cataloging is a crisis in some institutions. And I know we're discussing this all around the world in several ways, when mostly superiors, responsible people, directors, and so on are saying, do we need any longer cataloging for what? We can do this all via AI, or do we need this? And so this process became in parallel with developing the RDA toolkit. And the process has been intensified in the following years, and all standards, not only RDA, has to take this into account and have to face these new challenges. What I told you, the RDA committees, the responsible committees, took over these requirements and started in 2015 with the 3R project. And this changed a lot for the user communities. For some of them, it seems to be not so easy, mostly coming some complaints from the library communities. And on the other side, for other user communities like archives and museums, I got very much feedback that the new toolkit offers new opportunities for them, and it's much more easier to go ahead with RDA. And we have we got more and more user communities all around the world over the years with numerous application profiles, especially as well, not only in libraries, but in other cultural institutions. And so we have to think about it. What has changed? We are on the road towards internationalization. This will be a never-ending process, I have to say. Thinking about religious issues, how many religions there are in the world, you even can't say how many they are. So we will always have to do something in any ways. The good thing, what has changed for many communities are the many options we are having now in the toolkit. You can say it made the toolkit or the new RDA harder to use, but you do not have to fulfill all these options, but you have the choice now. You have real options. And if we are thinking out of our library box, then for many user communities, this is a good way to follow up with RDA. We will hear about this later on more concrete, about these community resources. Ahava mentioned it as well, which will be a place especially for the communities, as the name is saying, in the toolkit itself to show what they did, what they are doing, what projects and plans, what goals they achieved, whatever. The toolkit now, that's not a new thing, is a really web-based toolkit now. The first toolkit was more or less a PDF living in the web environment, but this has changed. Linked data applications are possible now and many other things. What must change? Yeah, the profit of the RDA as a standard is that there is behind a very stable, sustainable, and proven organizational structure. As I mentioned before here in the last hour, the liaisonship with the, there is something here now on the, should I say, cannot understand it. Should I press OK? I do not know what I am agreeing to. That's better just to close it.
Yeah. No, okay.
No, nothing happened. Thank you. Thank you for doing this. So the stable and sustainable organization RDA is having helps us a lot to manage all the things that we would like to do and to develop the standard further on. But it does mean, on the other hand, that we have to try and to test our procedures in an ongoing way, because nothing is stable for eternity. And so we need to review and to adapt some processes. And that's what's happened for the time being and what was initiated in the last months. And I would like to hand over now to James Hennelly, who will give us a report about the processes we initiated in the RDA board and in the RSC itself. And we have got some results. And so he can show you first results of what we did. So, Jamie, are you ready?
Yes. So thank you, everyone, and thank you for allowing me to be here today and join in your meeting. Renata mentioned some of the stuff that we're working on right now, and I've listed kind of what some of our primary goals are right now. Some of them are in a more concrete place, and others exist in a more abstract inside the minds of myself and the RDA board and the RSC, and needs further development. But we'll jump into what we've done. There it goes. So most of you are probably familiar with community resources. We have two types of ways to contribute to the community resources. There's partner, which means you can work inside the toolkit content management system. There usually is a fee involved. This kind of partnership relationship usually comes along with folks who are doing translation in the toolkit or are doing policy statements in the toolkit. So it's a good option for people who are already involved in the CMS. If they're in the CMS, they don't have to pay a fee. But if you want to join the CMS, work as a partner, you would pay a fee, but it would also allow you to do policy statements and et cetera. Then we have contributing creators of community resources. They work in our HTML editor. There's no fee involved for that. You just need to contact me and let me know you're interested in doing that. And we can turn on your ability to contribute to the community resources. My next slide isn't working very well here. There it goes. I think, Renata, did you do that for me? Thank you. So this is a screenshot of the partner organizations and contributing organizations we have now. And you can see there's not a lot of activity here right now. We have the legacy RDA community resources, which are in English and were developed with the original toolkit. We also have some Finnish community resources here that are related to those same legacy community resources, but are updated for Finnish use. There's one missing one here. I believe the Banc community in Quebec has added French community resources, and that's great. For contributing organizations, right now we just have the National Library of Israel, which is great. And you can see they have added material that's in Hebrew as well as in Roman script. And that's great. The HTML editor can accommodate most languages, I believe. And of course, there's my test that I have to remove from there. But I would like to see more people contributing here. And one of the things we need to learn, I think this is the document type there you see for the National Library of Israel. There's local policies and workflows. And I think it would be useful for us to get a better handle on what type of documents should be going into the community resources and what are most helpful to the larger community or communities that are outside of that particular region. So I think the more we get up there, the more we see how people use them, and we can better understand how to perfect this, to make it better serve RDA Toolkit users. So this is just a look at the display of this is the Finnish community resources. I just wanted to show you what the partnership experience looks like. As you can see, it looks exactly like RDA Toolkit. It has the same page layout. You can see the preview links that are offered after a link. The blue is the blue words are links, and then the little icon next to it allows you to preview that link in the right far right column. Next, this is an example of an HTML document and what it looks like. This, I believe, is from New Zealand, and I kind of borrowed one of theirs. They haven't added this to community resources, but I think it might be a useful thing to add to community resources. But you can see they created all of this within the HTML editor. But it looks kind of like the RDA Toolkit, but not exactly like. Certainly, there's no obligation to make it look like the RDA Toolkit. To be perfectly honest, my preference would be that they didn't make it look like the RDA Toolkit. I think for people understanding where the document is coming from, it's better if it looks different than the toolkit. But that's a personal decision. So this looks great, though, and this is what you can accomplish with the HTML editor. So next week, I'm going to be officially announcing the companion subscription. This is a new subscription that we've decided to roll out in face of the creation of these RDA manuals that we're seeing from, say, RDA-FR or the DOSH manual that's appeared online. It's a new subscription level, and it's for groups of institutions that want permission to create an online cataloging manual. It's intended for those sharing an online manual for a large community of libraries. So the new post-3R RDA, as we all know, has lots of options and lots of decisions, and it basically requires libraries to make a lot of decisions and to create an application profile. We understand that that's necessary, but we also hope that these manuals are created in a way that respect our copyright and our permissions, control over permissions, and don't undermine our need for revenue to support this ongoing project. So we've created this new subscription level. I'm going to go to the next one. The pricing for it is going to be flexible. We're always willing to negotiate prices if there's reasonable needs to change off of our base calculation. The base calculation is based on community population. And that's the population of the entire community being served. So that's, in the case of DOSH, that includes the population of Germany, Austria, and Switzerland. This would require annual renewal to maintain the permission. I think I feel like I skipped one. Did I? Yeah. The benefits of this subscription include obviously the permission to publish an online cataloging manual based on RDA. It does not include permission for a print manual. That has to be discussed separately. Our assumption is with this is that you will be making your online cataloging manual free to the public. If it is not free, if you decide to charge for it, that will change the agreement that we come to. It'll also provide access to the RDA content management system. Come with that, so if you're doing translation or policy statements or community resources, you'll be treated as a partner. So this is included with that subscription. You'll be granted toolkit access that aligns with the needs of your community served. So as is the case with the DOSH agreement, and they're serving a huge number of libraries in Germany, Austria, and Switzerland. We maintain the IP access for all of those libraries, and we give them a large number of licenses so that they can always get access and they don't run out of user seats or user licenses to access the toolkit. We also include membership in a proposed new governance group that I'm going to talk about in just a few minutes. So more on that to come. I talked about pricing. Oh, I jumped again. So representation. We're always looking for new ways to better engage with the toolkit stakeholders. And we know that a lot of catalogers and users of RDA don't necessarily feel ownership of RDA. They feel like it's just something out there for the very elite libraries or still dominated by Anglo-American preferences, etc. And we want to find some way to address that. So there is a proposal that's just begun. We've just begun discussion of it in the RDA board to add advisory council. And kind of the idea is that this advisory council would meet twice a year with the RDA board. The board would report to them the things that they're working on and the issues they're trying to address. And the council, there would be a Q&A period for the council to bring up topics to the RDA board to raise their concerns and request that certain things be addressed. This twice a year webinar, of course, when you're dealing with the entire world, there's no really good way to time it up. So I think we'll probably do this when we meet twice in the year. Each meeting will happen twice, so we can cover reasonable time zones for everyone involved. The proposed council would align with the broader strategic and business issues that is the board's role and expand participation in the board. So here, despite my poor spelling, that's what I get for doing these late at night. What we want to see is the RDA, the RSC, excuse me, the steering committee already kind of oversees what's written in the standard and maintaining that and changing that. And there's a system below the RSC with the regional committees, et cetera, that can make changes to that aspect, the content of RDA, et cetera. But what we'd like to see is for this advisory council to meet with the board and take up issues that have to do with the strategic or business side of the RDA toolkit. So this is where we can raise concerns about pricing or the way the RDA toolkit is structured or any other kind of strategic necessity that needs to be addressed. And our hope is that by opening up this access to the board, the community, the full RDA community will better understand what the board is doing and also become better prepared to join the board. I would like to see advisory council members eventually become board members. And with this is also the board is looking at expanding the participation in the board or eligibility in the board to not be restricted to national libraries, but also include other libraries and who are doing significant cataloging work, et cetera. So that's one of the things that is in work right now. There we go. And then, of course, the final thing we really need to address, particularly in this period, as we move towards the countdown clock and the removal of the original toolkit, is to provide more and more training for official RDA. There remains this great demand for training, and training practices, as we all know, have to be specific to a region. The RSC cannot tell or doesn't want to dictate to people what options they're supposed to choose and what makes sense for their community. Others have to do that in their creation of the of their application profiles. And so the RDA board is exploring how we can develop trainers for all parts of the world. And one of the steps we want to do in this regard is maybe look into a kind of certification process that involves a course and a test that can be taken online that and the course would be preparing everyone to have a solid understanding of RDA at the highest level, at the primary concepts, and et cetera, and be prepared to and be well enough informed about RDA to begin making an application profile for their respective community and making those kind of decisions. And then also, of course, being able to train people on how to use that application profile. And I think that's all I had to say. Back to you, Renata.
Thank you, Jamie, so far. And I think the conclusion of all you heard now is that the RDA committees would like to provide more partnership, more possibility to participate, because I'm a veteran in the RDA context. I started nearly just at the beginning, and I always get, as a European, I got feedbacks, we cannot participate, things are happening there, somewhere there overseas. We have no influence at all in all these games. And I think it's a good time to have these changes now, to go towards more partnership, more participation, to have something like this proposed advisory council where you can discuss, raise your concerns, make proposals. So we will see what will happen beside our regular written changing processes via discussion papers and proposals. This will go ahead. And the other thing is, the board have had a special working group for this new governance structure, because, as I said this morning, we're appreciating very much all these approaches many user communities are doing or had done in the past, and all these manuals. But for a real partnership, it has to be on an equal level. And so the new governance model would like to fit into this kind of partnership, but partnership means from both sides. And if you're working, give me an example. I'm very much underway in IFLA context, and all the IFLA standards are free, and in Wikibase, in Wikipedia, everything is free. And so, yes, there are free things, but in library tradition and history, we always had to pay something for our standards to have these sustainable organization. Nobody will go away, or we say, oh, toolkit, no, we have other plans, let it go. Which you will risk in all these open surroundings. But it's expensive, it costs something, and so we have to think about how these could be, and that's why there is a copyright on the text, on the toolkit, on the translation, which is a normal thing. And I asked several older colleagues of mine who had the experience with other standards. They had to pay every year for 100 of copies of books. These were books, and all the actualizations and up-to-dates you had to pay for. So that's a normal thing, but we would like to have this on an equal level, and we would like now to have your questions, perhaps, or your comments to all this you've heard.